X-Men 97, we're back at it. We're gonna be doing another impromptu discussion video. We're gonna combine episodes 7 and 8, because I didn't have time to do episode 7 last week. Too many life things, so they're gonna come together, but it actually works out because these two pair quite nicely together. Episode 7 was called Bright Eyes, and episode 8 is Tolerance is Extinction Part 1, because now we're leading up to the finale. It's all ramping up from here. And so far, it's been a very exciting ramp up. The balance and the pacing for these last couple of episodes are really striking it with the excitement, the character development and growth, the downbeats, and then the high key action scenes. These last two have been really good at that. Of course, as with everything, before we get too into it, spoilers. We're going to be discussing this with spoilers because it's going to be off the cuff, and so maybe a plot point will come up and maybe it won't. We shall see, but just be forewarned. For forewarned is forearmed. We're going to start off with Bright Eyes. Bright Eyes started off with the funeral for Gambit.
Remy LeBeau would be the first to remind you that life, like the cards, is wild.
And it was nice to see some of the characters from Gambit's backstory just in the background for that. Also, it was a nice touch to have Nightcrawler do the eulogy. But mostly, it was nice that the episode gave some space for that grieving period to show it.
How could she not be here? He saved all of us. He saved her.
It also showcased that people were grieving in different ways, which led, of course, to Rogue, who is very, very angry, and she is being very aggressive, and it's leading to some actions that are probably going to have a lot of fallout.
Thought your kind were the good guys.
You killed those, Sugar. Now, you get me.
This episode started something that they're both doing, and it's been done lightly before this, but it's been really bringing in other elements of the rest of the Marvel Universe. The 92 series did this when it could, but because of rights issues and the like, it wasn't able to make the universe feel as cohesive as it always wanted to. It had its moments though. It wasn't without moments when things came together. But there was just something very exciting in Bright Eyes about seeing Captain America's shield come down, see that tension between Rogue and Cap.
This uniform shows up in Mexico bashing heads in with you. It sends a message.
Damn right that you stand with mutants. Unless you don't now.
Made you think about Avengers versus X-Men things. And the good thing about this episode was that all of these moments, they also pulled the plot forward. Everything felt very layered here. As with all of these episodes, there's been lots of discussions of theme. But unlike, say, the last episode, Life Death Part 2, these ones felt very, very grounded because it was surrounded entirely by what had happened with Genosha.
I just know I wouldn't want my parents finding out who I was on the 5 o'clock news.
These two episodes in general presented a decently nuanced take of the various events. Not always, but on the whole, it did a very solid job, and everything that was there felt intentional. You can feel the deliberation with which it has been crafted. There have been lots of little nice moments of just visual storytelling that stand out. Bright Eyes was leading ultimately to the reveal of Operation Zero Tolerance, OZT, and the reveal of Bastion, who had been hinted at since Life Death Part 1. There is a photo of him on the wall. People started calling it from that point. And so it was fun to see that him and Sinister are working together, that there's kind of a cabal going on. Also, Theo James, the voice actor they have for Bastion, is just doing an excellent job. For me at least, it's becoming one of those moments where when I go back and read Bastion stuff now, that's going to be the voice that I hear. He's just giving a very charismatic, chilling performance.
Oh, Sinister. You and the villains of old have been failing since 92 to squash these pests.
There was also the reveal in episode 7 that Magneto was alive, but that's not really a surprise because Charles would have sensed it when he sensed all that death. And also people were calling that from episode 5 because you never saw a body. You can't trust anything if you don't see a body. Lots of the plot lines from Bright Eyes carried over into Tolerance's Extinction, like what happened with Bobby and revealing his mutant powers to his mom. This was a nicely layered scene that had a lot of elements that were being pulled from, and they played well and continue to do so in Tolerance's Extinction. It's very pointed and very much trying to make the point it wants to make, but it does it well. My voice is so low today. I have a cold. I can't sleep. When I can't sleep, I make videos. I ended up making 2 Joker videos in a row because I couldn't sleep. Bright Eyes also started to play even more with the idea of potentially, maybe we'll see if they go there with a schism in between the X-Men themselves, because we're building up to a very big confrontation, and there is the potential that some people are going to want to take different sorts of actions than others. Rogue in particular had a very dark moment when she killed Trask.
I have nothing.
Same, Sugar.
or let him die, Jason Todd style. It was more aggressive than Jason Todd though. However, this ultimately played into Bastion's plans because it revealed the whole human sentinel hybrid thing that was going on and allowed for Cable. I love Cable even though I almost never talk about him. He played a pretty big role in Tolerance is Extinction, which was fun, and tried to play with the family vibes and awkwardness, the fact that Cyclops is his dad, but he's older than him.
A couple centuries late in the overprotective dad bit, huh?
Both of you, stop it!
Tolerance is Extinction was just a very solid and exciting episode. This one gave Bastion's backstory as they're presenting it.
Who could hear things? Not thoughts. Machines. He's descended of every sentinel from Master Mold to Nimrod.
Which adds some cool layers that'll be interesting to see if they pull upon. He's a kind of sort of mutant that's perpetrating this because it adds nuance to what's going on. Layers upon layers. The more layered it is, the more complex, the more interesting, in my opinion at least.
You're a monster.
I was born this way.
This episode also shows what Operation Zero Tolerance is to be.
Operation Zero Tolerance. Trask sentinels, well, they're too blunt. You can spot them a mile away.
And also the future that Cable is seeking to prevent.
Xavier's dream came true. Mutants ushered in a bright and peaceful future as its backbone.
At least parts of it, Bastion is clearly planned for, and the level of that hasn't been fully revealed. I see you old-timey tech that would survive an EMP blast. Is that because Bastion's powers, or because he wanted what happened at the end of the episode with Magneto to happen? He didn't have to bring him to all those meetings to eavesdrop on who to go target. All of this is pulling from some threads from multiple X-Men storylines, still E is for Extinction, and of course Operation Zero Tolerance, and some others. And it's meshing those quite well with parallels that people will most likely be able to draw from in their own lives time of recording.
They know they're joining something far greater than themselves.
At the same time, it is doing something that E is for Extinction did.
In 100 years, mutants outnumber humans 10 to 1. And generations later, human extinction.
That is one of the weaker aspects of E is for Extinction. It sets up a potential scenario that places human fears as rational if they are truly set to be replaced as a species, which moves away from the idea presented in the 92 series that mutants are human.
You were designed to protect humans from mutants.
That is not logical. Mutants are human.
Or it appears to on the surface. It can, depending upon how it plays out. We'll see how it goes. So far, this series, it seems to have more of an end goal for doing it. We will see, though, time of recording. It may trip and fall on its face. It would be surprising since so many things have landed so well for this show, but you never know. Regardless of what happens, I'm very intrigued and excited to see what happens. This show is really selling, once again, the week-to-week format. It's fun, and then you have the build-up for the week, and everybody talks about it and gets hyped. There's appeals to both. There's appeals to binging, and then there's appeals to this classic release week-by-week schedule. There's a lot of machinations going on with Bastion, and the idea of him being uber evil, being born that way, other villains not being entirely aligned with it. How much is in his control? Does he have programming? Can he see the future? Why does Valerie Cooper look just like his mom? The episode also plays even more with something that's been hinted at throughout, which is that phrase that you've heard in comics, Magneto was right. However, the way it presents it is very interesting in that Valerie Cooper describes it as a scary thought, which was appreciated because inside of the comics it is meant to be a scary thought. You don't want Magneto to be right, or at least many would argue you're not supposed to. Some do. Some very much want Magneto to be right and think he is right. And it can lead to some very passionate discussions, which can be fun, or it can go too far and be terrifying. I like discussing things like this, but it can get a little fraught in fandom sometimes, particularly with the X-Men, given their allegorical nature or illusional nature. Some have understandably attached much value to them, and that can lead to some discourse getting out of control. Hopefully it stays fun. So far, for the most part, discussions of X-Men 97 have been very fun. It's just been an exciting, lively fandom to be a part of. As mentioned, there was a lot of really cool imagery in these episodes, a lot of evocative imagery as well, seeing the numbers on Magneto's arm. The way he was splayed, though, across that X, there's a lot of thirst happening in these. I see it, I note it. They didn't have to display him that way, but they did.
So I hand humanity Genosha.
Magneto being let out by Valerie Cooper and her speech and the end scene of his first words since being captured being enough, it's All very powerful. There was this moment though I smiled, and it's just because of all the comics that I read where he goes up to the poles and does the massive EMP pulse to stop all of the human sentinels who have turned, and they also don't know, many of them, that is what has become of them, which was another intriguing element. So by the episode's end, things are set for all-out war. It made me think about the Ultimate Universe where Magneto went up there and flipped the axes on the poles, and it was very silly because of how it ended up being implemented, and he snapped Charles's neck. There are lots of ways in which this show, because it's tweaking things for its own canon, is very much streamlining some of the ideas. The animation for these last few episodes has been very exciting and dynamic, especially during the fight scenes. Rogue taking on the army base had the very anime style leg drop at one point. The scenes of Nightcrawler using dual swords, triple swords, because you include the tail, and also his BAMF teleportation, and where Wolverine gets dragged through one of them, excellent. There were all the fun Summers moments of the family doing things together, the family that fights sentinels together. There were also just those smaller moments that, if you took a moment, they conveyed a lot. For example, when Cable goes into Bastion's childhood home and takes a moment to look at the photos of him, Bastion that is, as a happy child, and you can see that it's really impacting him. It's a very small moment, but based on if you have a knowledge of Cable's history, or even just what they've said in the episode about how him and Bishop got split in the time stream, it doesn't take a lot to imagine that Cable didn't have the best childhood. So it's a little moment that conveys a lot, and that episode and Bright Eyes are full of moments like that. This show just continues to be very, very solid. It's been a treat to watch it week after week. It has its ups, it has its downs, but on the whole, it's a very entertaining experience. One of the things that amused me is the fact that these humans have been turned into these human sentinel hybrids is playing with a classic cartoon rule that is, if something is a machine, you can go as hard as you want. So they dial the violence up because Samurai Jack rules. If it's a machine, you can put your claws right through it. I'm very curious if they're gonna hit more on the idea of evolution towards techno-organic life, because that's a very fascinating concept. That could be very intriguing to get into. We'll see if they end up going in that direction or ignoring it and going the classic machines are just evil route. We'll see. What would you like them to do? Do you want them to acknowledge the potential of techno-organics? Techno-organics have just always fascinated me as a concept. You can do some very interesting stuff there. Or very scary things as well. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention the classic "to me, my X-Men" line that Xavier gives when he returns. The way that Tolerance's Extinction also pulled together some of the threads from episode 6 was well done. The episodes are starting to connect together quite well. This series overall definitely outpaces its predecessor in terms of being able to maintain pace and storyline at this point. It started off a bit rough, but as it's gone on, it's really hit its stride, and probably watching this all together is going to be a treat. I'm looking forward to rewatching it all as one chunk once it's all done. This episode also had some callbacks to the first series, such as Sunspot and Jubilee in the mall. Even she makes a comment about it. It's just this series is very much what it said it was going to be, which is a loving ode to the X-Men, specifically X-Men 92, but also just the X-Men in general and the fans of those series and the concept of the X-Men. And it's doing it, and time for recording that's really, really refreshing. Even if one per se doesn't like everything about it or doesn't feel like it's landing, it really is doing what it set out to or attempting to. It just depends on whether it lands or not for you. So I want to hear from you. Are you enjoying this series? Are you still enjoying this series? Have you tapped out at some point? Are you excited for the depiction of Bastion? Do you like the direction where it seems like they're going? What do you think is going to happen with the Xavier-Magneto conflict that's inevitable or seems to be inevitable? Time for recording. The cameos, there was that Spider-Man cameo, and now people are hoping that they'll do a Spider-Man continuation. Are you one of those people? Do you just want Christopher Daniel Barnes to be voicing him again?
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker!
As always, put it all down below. I want to hear your thoughts. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time of your day to casually chit-chat about X-Men 97 with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.